Welcome to DXgov governance discussion for Wednesday, July 6, 2022. Reporting for the first time from Nashville, Tennessee. Let's start, as always, with the proposal roundup. Let me share my screen here. This is the agenda for the whole meeting, but starting first with the proposal roundup. On Mainnet, we have two proposals live, pretty interesting. The first one is offloading RAI from Treasury 2 of 2. And the second one is governance gas contracts. So Dave, maybe a common theme today, but you want to maybe walk us through what this second proposal of RAI is and where we stand with it.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is just in response to the RAI negative redemption rate, which is like in significant double-digit territory negatively. I think Chris is just demonstrating that the rate is currently at minus 25%, which is pretty much like a negative interest rate, so to speak, for RAI. So if we were to hold RAI over the next year and the redemption rate were to stay the same, it would simply mean that our RAI would devalue by exactly 25%. And so for that reason, we took the decision to dispose of some of our RAI in the current market situation. The first proposal already passed. This is the second one, sending a further 350K of RAI to the multi-sig to sell it for other stable coins. And yeah, not much more to it than that. Just I think RAI is something we'll have to monitor more actively to see kind of how it develops and how the kind of redemption rate evolves in the long term. But of course, at these like high negative yield rates, so to speak, given that it's also a significant part of our runway, and we are actually one of the largest RAI holders out there. Now we still are, even though we sold off 350K last week. It just also makes sense to kind of get this RAI back into the market so people can, exit their positions, etc. And hopefully we will see kind of like a response in the redemption rate of RAI as we sell this. We haven't really seen too much based on our first kind of like off ramp, but yeah, it's something to actively monitor and see how that develops.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that we haven't really seen the P rate, if I understand that correctly. That's like the proportional rate. So I thought that would be something that would respond quickly to the price. It's one.
I think part of it is because the market price didn't move that much. Like, because if you look at I think the P rate is determined by the relationship between the redemption price and the RAI TWAP price, the time weighted average price, right? So to these things right here. And so this has gone, they both have gone down, but they've gone down by like the same amount. So like, I think the delta is basically the same.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's almost like it's a runaway train in a way, right? Like,
yeah.
Like I kind of question this design a little bit because like it's like the problem is that there's a gap like between the redemption price and the market price, right? Like if the market price goes higher than the redemption price, then they'd make a negative rate, which I suppose is supposed to induce you to sell RAI. But if you can't like sell it fast enough to catch the falling, right? Like, I mean, the negative rate is also continuing to drop the redemption price, which increases the gap itself, right? Without like, if the market doesn't do anything, the gap's actually getting worse. CoinGecko, that's our.
Well, I was like, I don't use CoinGecko on this browser, so it's like surprised that's not some scammer hasn't taken CoinGecko.com and purchased it.
But I guess the relevant thing for us is like, I was hoping to see that we'd make a bigger impact on the price so that maybe we didn't have to get rid of all of the RAI. But like, if this current proposal goes through, and we still see a high negative interest rate, we're still holding on to 300,000 RAI. And so I think then we have to ask ourselves, what do we do with that? I guess if it's still a very high negative rate, then I guess the answer is to sell that as well.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the market price for the RAI right now, because like in terms of DXgov selling its RAI, like no matter what the redemption rate is, whatever it's doing, like, you know, if we're selling, we're going to be selling at the market price. And so I guess that has gone down a bit over the last week. And this is, I think, before the selling. It might have been in actually anticipation of the selling. So $3.07 to now like $3.01. So I don't know, what's that, like a 2% decline in the market price in a week, which is actually pretty significant if you like put that out over if you annualize that to a yield component.
But on the other hand, it still means like it has to keep that up for like several weeks before it catches up to the redemption price.
It's like a slow moving, it's a slow moving train or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I mean, this proposal actually voted on it this morning. Got to get back into voting. It felt good, but yeah, I voted on it this morning, and I think this one clearly like we'll go through with it. I think Dave, last time the trades were to USDC and LUSD, but this time it'll be to DAI and LUSD. And yeah, I think we go through with this one. And then there is, I think 300,000 RAI, which is about $900,000 in the treasury still. And I think we should monitor that, but I don't actually necessarily think we should be quick to just dump that because we're losing like a small amount on a negative yield. Just because I think like part of the reason we're holding RAI is for its decentralization element. And so I think we need to at least evaluate that after these trades have kind of gone through, and again, like how the system absorbs it. Because really what I think needs to happen is there needs to be people like, oh, the price of RAI has dropped enough, so maybe I'm going to like pay off my RAI debt. Because people that have RAI debt, their debt is becoming cheaper when the price of RAI drops. And so the more selling on the market price, maybe some of those RAI debt holders will purchase the DAI and then pay back their debt, and that'll like kind of affect the system. But I think it would be best to like kind of wait and see how these two large sales have affected before moving forward, before deciding on the remaining 300,000 RAI.
One thought I had, it actually wasn't my idea, but I was talking to different people about this, is potentially one way we could approach it is putting the remaining RAI into Aave, and then DXgov could then collect the the interest rate on the deposits in Aave, and it also would like facilitate the market shorting RAI.
Yeah, I guess like I was looking at the APY on Aave now for like RAI is like 1.1% or 1.2%, so it is pretty low to get that yield. And I guess like you'd be lowering the cost of borrowing for RAI, right? Because you'd be depositing RAI into Aave, meaning that it would be cheaper for people to borrow RAI. But the cost of borrowing RAI is already really low, especially when you go directly to Reflexer, because you have like the redemption price that is below the market price. So you really are like basically getting paid to borrow RAI, and no one is doing it there. So I'm not sure if like Aave will help affect the overall.
Yeah, when I looked, it was like 10%, but I guess it's 1%.
Yeah, Dave was saying we like spikes, and I'm trying to figure out why it spikes in sometimes, but like it seems like it has. Yeah. The other thing we could think about doing though, if we want to get some yield, is like putting it in the swapper. That would, think if it's only 1%, like that. I think the stable coins, the USDC and DAI and Gnosis Chain has actually gotten, I think, about 2.5% over the last year. So maybe that's another option for the remaining one. Probably maybe Mainnet. I know it wouldn't be the most efficient to be on Swapper, but we could even increase the fee there and see that. But
on the Aave point, I think one reason why it might be more attractive to short sellers than using RAI itself is just because of the types of collateral available in Aave. Because like if you wanted to short like RAI through Reflexer, you have to put up ETH as collateral. And I think, this is sort of the fundamental problem here, right? Is that there's not enough demand for like collateralizing ETH and getting leverage or whatever, right? So I think with Aave, people can actually use stable coins. So it makes it a little bit easier for the short sellers. They can short sell against another stable coin.
Yeah, or any other. Aave's got a bunch more assets than just ETH, but that's a good point.
But anyhow, if the rate stays at like negative 25% even up to the next sale, it's like that's actually like that is significant, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I know. The problem, I mean, this is like the system like adjusts over time. So even when it's a pretty complicated system, but it is all transparent out there. So if you can kind of understand it, but like there is a chance, right? The sales have not actually like affected the PID controller yet because it hasn't like incorporated yet because there's some lagging period. But I don't.
Yeah.
That's what I'm not sure. Like what that lagging period is, how much it affects.
Yeah, my rudimentary understanding of this is that the redemption rate, which is basically the rate of change of the redemption price, which, like Dave said, you can think of as the negative, as an APY basically on your RAI. It's broken up into the P and the I rates, and the P is a proportional rate, which I think is supposed to be, basically a current response. Now, I think even that has some lag because it's using like a time-weighted average price, and it's not just like the immediate market price difference from the redemption rate. So maybe we are still waiting for that to catch up even. And then the I rate is an integral, and that takes like something like a couple of months, I think, to catch up to what the P rate is doing, right? So it's sort of like approaching the P rate over time.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, actually, like currently, it's sort of getting worse, I think, right? Because the P rate's still quite a bit higher than the I rate. So the I rate is actually getting closer to the P rate, even if we knock the P rate down or up, less negative. So I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a shame. Now again, like I guess this is like an experimental system, and they kind of pick the parameters out of thin air, right? So I mean, maybe not completely thin air, but I mean, it's very possible that like this system is not really like optimized, or like maybe it's overshooting a little bit here, but I mean, who knows?
Yeah, and I think this is people talk about like market failures, and sometimes that happens, right? In where like here is a market opportunity with people should mint RAI, deposit ETH, mint RAI, and sell that, right? And that's what the system is trying to encourage. But like, there's just so little demand for leverage with ETH now that like that's not an effective tool to change the system or to like alter the structure of it. So yeah, I don't know if they should have other tools or it gets large enough where that is a tool that people can use. But right now, it's definitely not affecting it in the way I think it would intended to be.
Yeah, and then I don't know if you guys saw it was just last night in Discord, but Spicy Soup was giving a little bit of pushback on buying LUSD because of LUSD itself is also above $1. It's like $1.02.
Yeah.
And we were having a conversation about this in Discord last night. I mean, I think that is not ideal, but my argument, like, for why it still maybe makes sense to do it is because it provides us a decentralized stablecoin, whereas, even DAI is pretty reliant on USDC. So, I mean, like we end up in a situation where basically our only stablecoins are like USDC. Now, there's some other centralized ones too that people were mentioning that I kind of forgotten about. BUSD was suggested by Connor. There's also True USD or TUSD, and then there's PAX as well.
Yeah, I mean, Pax. So Paxos is the one who also runs BUSD, like Binance USD. They're like the custodian, but I think like the backend for that. And I feel like that has the same kind of risk reward as USDC. And it's like I'm not sure if those would ever deviate, where like one would get blacklisted and the other wouldn't, or something. Because presumably it would come from like government action, unless Circle or one of them like acted unilaterally. But yeah, I mean, this is also why I think like there is a cost to holding RAI, and even like we're going to like LUSD, that trade to $1.02 is basically like taking a negative yield and realizing it immediately there. So yeah, I think there could be a cost to holding RAI that may be worth having it for a smaller amount going forward. But yeah, I mean, again, the question is like seeing this number change, the negative 25%.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So that will pass in an hour and a half, and yeah, we'll get that one, and we'll keep the conversation going. And then not the next mainnet proposal is to fund the Q2 2022 gas governance refunds smart contract. This is always fun, but it's a little less fun this month because the total amount is a little bit lower than it has been in the past. I think we're looking at 6 to 7 ETH in the past for the quarter. I think most of kind of twofold. One, there's been less activity on mainnet in terms of people voting and doing that. But more than that, the gas prices have actually been pretty low the last quarter, especially if you catch it in the morning and evening. But there's instructions on how to claim your gas governance refunds in the forum, and it should be the same one as it's been over for, I think this is maybe the 7th quarter this has been going on. So that will hopefully get passed in 7 days. And then moving to Gnosis Chain, I'm gonna see if this loads here. I was having some trouble on my RPC. My DApp node has not perfectly made it over into the move, where I haven't kind of set it up completely. I think there was also like a upgrade to DApp node, so I haven't figured that out yet. So I've been trouble relying on my own RPC here, but just looking at Alchemy, I guess, for the Gnosis Chain proposals. We have 2 from Ross and Milton getting some DXgov love here in the proposals here, and then there's one just boosted today that's an audit of Carrot V1 by Team Omega, and this is for 35,000 USDC. John, maybe you want to just speak to this proposal for a minute?
Sure thing. Yeah, we haven't published it yet, but they have submitted the report, and Federico's actually responded to all the findings. We should actually have the final report this week, and then I'll try to get that published as soon as we can. But this is for Carrot V1. I mean, I could talk more about that, but I think we've covered that. So I mean, it's got more flexibility. The idea is like allow any kind of Oracle templates or KPI token templates themselves to be added to the system and support many different types of things. We'll also be able to like combine conditions in new ways, use multiple collateral, could have different collateral, and kind of sky's the limit on what you might want to be able to do with Carrot V1. Yeah, there's a kid in the background.
I was like, I know a little bit about that noise. That's a kid. That's a child, not a ghost.
Yeah. But that's that. Any questions?
And this is like, I guess, a pretty big audit done by Omega team, and I guess they've done some of the governance stuff. But is this like the biggest one that I guess Team Omega has done for DXgov?
Ross, do you remember the guilds one was, or the governance one was pretty close to it, I think.
And they did.
I don't remember exactly. I think it was in the 30,000 though.
Cool.
Yeah, they covered the fork we've done so far of DAO Stack, which is like the new wallet schemes and permission registry.
Got it. Cool. And then there are 3 buyback proposals that I actually forgot to put on this one that are ongoing, and I will have it on my list this week to get a biweekly trade volume out there, and then we'll have some additional updates on DXD stuff in the coming week here. And then on Arbitrum 1, there are lots of farming proposals that were just submitted last night, because this is the week of farming campaign launch. So the Arbitrum ones are there, and then we should also be having Gnosis campaigns launched on Gnosis Chain this Thursday there. So be on the lookout for those. And that's it for the live proposals. I guess just before we get to discussion items, maybe a small comment is, I think governance is, it's pretty amazing that DXDAO operates in governance. We have all these people kind of coordinating, and at the end of the day, that's like people voting on chain. And I think it's very important for that to be as decentralized as possible. So just a friendly reminder that it's incumbent upon all of the contributors that are believe in this mission of decentralization to try to be active participants in governance and in terms of voting on chain that way. So always encouraging people to do that. Cool. And then I just had one discussion item here that I wanted to just chat a little bit about. I mean, there's a couple different things at the bottom, maybe things to check out we could, and if anyone else has anything. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about the next transfer to Gnosis Chain. And this was something that Dave and I were chatting about. And so right now we've been doing basically, you did like a 500, so all the funds, DXgov funds, of course, are basically on Mainnet, but all of the payments to contributors and even like some, the larger ones like this one to the Carrot team and things like the Team Omega for the Carrot audit and also for Space Inch. These tend to happen all on Gnosis Chain. And so we periodically have to transfer funds from Mainnet to Gnosis Chain. And we've done this, the last time we did this was, I think it was 45 days ago, and that was for $500,000. And so those remember, like the burn is right around like, $260,000, $270,000 a month. And, some of that does end up coming on Mainnet. So yeah, it's probably about 250,000 that needs to be transferred like once a month. But we've done this, I think, in the past, kind of in like the 2-month increments. And the approach has been to basically, or I think the last one we did 45 days ago, that was right after some of the market action and some of the stable coins were, I guess, the UST had depegged, and there were some concerns of the stable coins. So we've started to basically use the, for lack of a better word, less desirable stable coins as the ones to fund the Gnosis Chain base. Now, obviously, before they are actually transferred to the Gnosis Chain base, they're converted into DAI or USDC, which are the kind of two tokens that I think all contributors and contractors are tend to be paid out of. So Dave and I were just chatting about the next transfer to Gnosis Chain because it'd probably be in about a week and a half, 2 weeks when it would need to hit. And yeah, I think we'd initially thought to maybe just do the 500,000 again and be taking it from USDT, but there was the thought of whether we should just do a larger transfer of maybe say the whole $1 million worth of USDT and then get that and then transfer that to the Gnosis Chain base. I would again convert it to XDAI and USDC, and then that would not just fund operations for the next 2 months, but fund operations for like the next 4 months. Now, the benefit to this would be obviously be kind of less. Would be one less transfer. It would get us out of USDT more quickly. And then the downside, of course, being Gnosis Chain base relies on Gnosis Chain security and is inherently less secure than Ethereum. So having more funds on Gnosis Chain does provide some additional risk there. So that was kind of a thought on whether to do a $1 million transfer here, and then that would probably set us up for at the end of the year after those 4 months, then to do another transfer from the remaining $600,000 of SUSD that's remaining in the treasury, and that would and that would kind of take us to the beginning of next year in terms of payments on Gnosis Chain. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of get like a little feedback on the Tether chart here. See if everyone, has thoughts on this. Oh, and then Dave, do you want to talk about USDC on Alchemy? I meant to say that earlier.
Sure. Well, I don't even know what exactly the issue is, but initially Federico DM'd me last week that we were out of USDC on Gnosis Chain, which I knew we weren't. We have like 6 fair amount, but apparently Alchemy doesn't allow you to redeem proposals that have USDC because it doesn't read that we still hold USDC somehow. So if you go for DXvote and redeem the proposal there, it redeems completely fine. In fact, Chris and Space Inch had an issue as well. So Space Inch didn't manage to redeem their proposals. Texted Chris, and then yesterday I actually redeemed the proposal on their behalf for DXvote, and it worked fine. So I don't know if there's. I would assume it's due to the RPCs in Alchemy which are dead. So of course, think a month ago we had the Alchemy subgraph issue of not being synced, and I think like the RPCs they use are still, like deprecated or whatever. I'm not really sure, but yeah, Alchemy is like slowly falling apart, I would say.
Sometimes you see a button redeem, but it's actually execute, and then after execute you see another button, and that's the true redeem. Maybe that's somewhat of a confusion. You think you're redeeming, but you're executing, and you have to redeem one more time.
No. It says that the DAO doesn't have sufficient USDC balance.
Oh, I see.
I'll just jump in here and say that we should, like, I discussed this with a few people, but we should like make our plans to either move away from Alchemy or rehost Alchemy ourselves. Because it doesn't look like that's going to be maintained for very much longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, we've been preparing. I mean, this is why we're doing DXvote or now Davi. So, I mean, we are prepared in that sense. But it would be nice, I think, just as an additional, just not to have as many options as possible. If we could try to host it some way, I did ask around a little bit, but haven't gotten anything solid back yet on that. So, if we could just talk to more DAO Stack people and try to get them to either allow us to clone it or even just transfer the ownership, that would be good, I think.
Yeah. And something to note for USDC specifically, because I just noticed, like the proposal, John submitted USDC, but I think that was through DXvote, that I think there is USDC in the treasury. It just, for some reason, the Alchemy is not showing it.
Yeah, it might be I can take a look at it too. I mean, it might be as simple as it doesn't have the USDC registered in the app.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. USDC has been used, it says, I guess, in the past. And so I'm just thinking what's kind of changed here. But
does it show up in the UI for you under the DAO holdings on the left there?
Yeah. No, but XDAI doesn't either.
Well, but it sees XDAI. It doesn't have the balance, but it says XDAI. So if it doesn't show up there, I think it may simply not be identified. There's basically a file in Alchemy, like the application that lists the assets you want it to recognize. You have to tell it how many decimals it has and that kind of thing.
But I think if that were the case, then you wouldn't even be able to select it as a reward in Alchemy, because Alchemy, when you submit a proposal, also uses the same list to choose which rewards you can get. Yeah. It's really weird.
So you do see it as the reward. Yeah, it does, right? So
yeah, you can select it as a reward, but then it does, I don't know. It's really weird. I tried to look as well, but it just doesn't make sense. That's why I was just like, okay, I'll redeem it from DXgov.
It could also be, I mean, we can debug it later, but I mean, Gnosis is a little different too. Gnosis Chain is a little bit different the way it does the wraps tokens. But back to on the Tether question, I'm sharing my screen, this is what would concern me about Tether and why I think it's I support the plan of offloading all of the Tether, is because here you see the market cap of Tether over the last 30 days. And if you look at it kind of when this sort of started to fall, it was around June 12th. And I think it was June 13th or 14th was when the Federal Reserve raised the rates by 75 basis points. And they basically have been signaling that they're going to do it by, again, another 75 basis points at the end of July. And so you can see it's gone from 72 billion to 66. So we've lost 6 billion USDT. It's been, redeemed. Now that's all good and well if they are fully solvent, but there has long been some doubts and questions about its solvency. And I'm not saying this is that likely to happen, but I just think this tail risk of rising interest rates cause people to redeem their stable coins, and at some point people panic about Tether, and then there's a run on the bank, and we just don't want to be in that situation where it's going to zero and we can't get it out of the treasury.
Yeah, I think the peg number is a bit more important than the market cap, because I think redemption just means people are going to safer assets, which are like dollars in a bank.
Okay, I'll try to. So the reason I think the market cap is important is the failure mode that I'm thinking of is like that Tether is short a little bit on the backing. Like they maybe say they have 90% of the outstanding USDT in actual dollars ready to redeem. And I sort of think that, in the same way that kind of UST went, like there's sort of this incentive to redeem until you can't, right? Like you basically pretend to be solvent in the hopes that like it just gets better over time. And so it really doesn't become a DPEG problem until they actually like hit the like a low enough amount that they literally can't redeem anymore. So, I mean, that's why I watched the market cap. I watched the market cap actually a lot with UST as well. That was like one of the things I thought was very concerning was how that compared to the Luna market cap. So, and from a solvency standpoint, I think the market cap is significant.
Yeah, and if you look at DAI, the market cap has actually decreased by a lot more than USDT, and actually all stablecoins really over the last month and a half, with the exception of USDC and BUSD, have decreased in size as like part of the general deleveraging aspect there. I think mostly it's like, and this is not financial advice, but like I see no reason to hold USDT when you can hold USDC, and so I just imagine a lot of people have been making that kind of jump over the last month or two into USDC, because there really are no, especially for like if you can't redeem Tether, which most of us plebs cannot, there's really no reason to hold it.
Yeah, the nice thing about these decentralized systems like DAI is it's very transparent and visible how it's collateralized and how it unwinds, right? So we can actually have confidence that it could go all the way to zero and still, basically work.
Cool. Yeah, so I was chatting about that. Maybe we'll expect a forum post before the transfer, especially if it is a large one there. And yeah, be mindful of USDC. And then, yeah, if you're ever submitting a proposal and have no preference for USDC or XDAI, sometimes it is easier to take one or the other depending on what the balance is. And so, yeah, feel free to shoot a message to Dave or myself. But yeah, we'll get the next transfer over in the coming weeks. Cool, and that was it in terms of discussion items. Just a couple things to check out. I don't know if there's anything to chat about them, but there are DXgov Discord rep boosts. The forum post is up from Keenan. Then there's a appreciation DAO using Cordinape. Epoch 2 up from Melanie, and then there's an awesome how to claim your vested DXD from Ali that's posted in the forum there. So feel free to check those out to learn more. Any thoughts, comments on those, or anything else before we close? Ooh, WXDAI is a good point from Dave. Claim that.
I can just mention something quickly about Epoch 2 of Appreciation DAO. I know it's not anything quite as exciting as the transfer to Gnosis DAO, but I hope all of you had a chance to check out the Cordinape Epoch 2 proposal in the forum. I posted it last week. Essentially, the post outlines a draft proposal for the next epoch of Appreciation DAO using Cordinape. For those who are not familiar, who did not participate in the initial epoch or didn't hear me discuss it in the product call last Friday, I'll explain a little bit more about Cordinape and why we use it. So basically, Cordinape is a tool that was created to help DAOs like incentivize and reward their contributors. At DXDAO, we use Cordinape as a way to reward one another and show each other our appreciation for the contributions that we've made throughout the year. The tool we'll be specifically using is the gift circle, and it's within that gift circle that we distribute give tokens and write notes of appreciation for one another. And the contributor X felt that this would be the ideal time for the next epoch. One, because it's mid-year and we've just completed our peer reviews and kind of had time to stop and reflect on the contributions that we've all made this year, and then, you know, the contributions that others have already made throughout the year so far. And so all of these things and more details of Cordinape are in the post on Tau Talk. So just please take some time to check it out. I wanted to talk really quickly about it on this call because I have a few action items, or I have a few questions I put at the end of the post that I'd like a little bit of feedback on. One, I'd like to know, do we think that this is a fair amount? We are requesting 30,000 to be used for this epoch. Given obviously the conditions of the market, I just wanted to come to some kind of like consensus from the community and get kind of like a thumbs up or, you know, an approval on that amount. And then second, or did you want to say something, Chris? Sorry.
How much was the last one, just for context? Because there was one done last December, January time. That was 25 or 30,000. I can't remember.
25.
25.
It was 25, and it was kind
that
of
would be the smaller group too.
Yeah, exactly. And that amount's kind of like based on how many contributors are participating. So great point that you bring up, Chris, because there was 25 contributors that participated in the initial epoch in January, and then in this epoch there will be 30 contributors participating. So that's where that number.
So it's so it's basically the same amount per contributor, even though that will vary based upon how much people receive from different people, but it's the same amount every contributor would have to give out. It's just more number, yes, per capita. That's the phrase.
Exactly. So I guess those are the two things that I'm waiting for. And also whether contributors would prefer the distribution of funds to be in wrapped XDAI or in DXD. I know this has been a topic that we've been like discussing a little bit in meetings on the side, and people have been leaning towards wrapped XDAI, but I'd like to hear if anybody else had a preference between the distribution of how they wanted the funds distributed in. So those were just my final questions on the post, and after I get a little bit of feedback, I'll post it on chain, and then if this proposal passes, I'll provide next steps for contributors on how and when the next epoch will be completed. All right.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Just reading the comments in there. Dave says DX would be vested, right? So he doesn't see a point. Then Adam says DXD may create sell pressure. But yeah, so maybe XDAI, wrapped XDAI, so we can use that for something. Cool. We'll direct comments, questions to the forum post and be on the lookout for a proposal submission. Okay. Anything else on the mind before we close here?
Go check out the month in review, which was posted 20 seconds ago.
Nice. Yeah, that's a nice shout.
Ah, Nathan, you're too fast, man.
There you go. Nice June. Oh yeah.
I even already clapped 50 times.
You know, it's like I love when Keenan goes and puts the little shadow behind the images. It's just that little extra effort at the very end. It's always nice to see.
John, I'm a 49 clap maximalist.
42 is the key. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Thank you for your GIFs, Dave. And yeah, have a good Wednesday.
Turbo